Hello, everybody. This is Dan Tomaszewski with Everything MSP. I hope you're all having a great day. And I also have a very special guest here, Jim Kerr. And Jim is with ERate ProfitWorks. How you doing today, Jim? Oh, you're muted, Jim.
Very well, thank you.
There we go. So how's your day going, Jim?
Pretty fair for a long holiday weekend. I'm still trying to shake it off, I guess. No, doing well.
Yeah, it's always fun, having that time off, right? I mean, it's great to recharge and spend time with family, but the work never ends, right? Sitting there for us, waiting when we get back into the office. So, Jim, I want to give a little background about you, and if there's anything additional, you can let me know as well. Jim has spent probably more than 35 years in technology and marketing, and you've spent a lot of time in project management, in the voice and data communication design, selection and integration, and as well as financial analysis in that area. So one of the biggest areas that I see that is going to be most beneficial for us is over the last 20 years, you've had an incredible amount of experience working with the ERate program. Is that correct?
Yep. And the name kind of says it all. So.
Exactly. And so this has kept you very busy, working with different providers around the country and bringing them up to speed of how they can, leverage and take advantage of money available for public schools and libraries as well.
Correct. So the ERate program has about $4 billion annually associated with it. And so that's a big number. And a significant portion of that is eligible for what is called managed services or managed internal broadband services.
That's incredible. And I'm looking at a stat here for you that's indicating that your clients were awarded over $200 million in ERate applications for 2021.
That's pretty conservative, actually. Yes.
Is it really? Wow. That's amazing. And so we're going to talk more about that. What I also want to do here is I'm going to pull in our good friend Alex Farley. And give Alex 1 second to go live here. There he is. Alex, are you with us here?
Yeah, Dan, how are we doing?
Doing great. So Alex, you were with Lifecycle Insights, and you used to own an MSP, and you worked together with Jim. Is that correct?
Yeah. We I don't even remember how we found Jim. We were working with somebody else doing ERate consulting and just getting raked over the coals, spending a ton of money for not a lot of backing. But we had accidentally stumbled on one K-12 opportunity, and they informed us and taught us about ERate. So we went out and hunted down a consultant, and then I met Jim somewhere along the way, and he stepped in and really helped us correct some things we had done wrong in our ERate process, make sure that we stayed out of trouble, made sure what we were offering and what we were selling on the contract was actually all the things that were allowed to be on the contract, and all those pesky little nuances. So he really kept us out of trouble with it and kind of helped us show ourselves as an expert in the space and somebody who knew what they were talking about, to the tune that we were able to go out and get. At one point, we had as many as 5 schools that we were doing ERate consulting for. So it turned into a large chunk of our business. That's
awesome. And so, Jim, do you have any additional information you want to share with your relationship with Alex and his organization?
So we really take a holistic approach to this, or a cradle to grave approach to it. If you just have the information but don't understand process, or you just have process but you don't have the database, or you don't have, who should we be focusing our attention on? How should we do this? And what are the rules of the road kind of thing? If you don't have an entire soup to nuts kind of view of ERate, you're really not going to be very successful, because either you're going to win a deal, and then as time goes by, you'll end up losing the same deal just because there's some care and feeding required along the way. And so you put all that time in on the front end, and then there's nothing worse than suddenly waking up one morning and going, wait a minute, I had that $100,000 worth of revenue and it's suddenly gone because I don't know why. So
Okay.
definite management of the process is required.
Okay, excellent. So with that being said, without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to you, Jim, and we'll jump into the meat of the presentation today. We're very excited to learn more about this process. And with that being said, Jim, I'll hand over the baton to you.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Dan. So let me start by sharing my screen here. A little housekeeping here. So hopefully we're showing up well here. So we're going to talk, and we're approaching funding year 2022. It's a fiscal funding year that runs from July 1 through June 30th. So July 1, 2022. We're in the application cycle for that funding year 2022. We're here to help. And so at the end, there's going to be contact information. We provide a cradle to grave solution for ERate. So the steps to be successful in ERate are, you need to understand the program. You better be marketing to the right audience. There's a thing called Category 2 budget we're going to cover off on. And this, by way of explanation, is a bit of an ERate level set intro. So we're going to talk about what the opportunity is and how the program works. And then if you want to take a deeper dive, we can take it offline at some point. So make sure you're marketing to the right audience. They have a Category 2 budget. We're going to discuss that and intends to spend it. They are the right size or right fit. If you're a MSP that's going to chase very large applicants like a New York City Schools or Los Angeles Unified School District, those are 1 and 2 in the nation, then you need to be able to determine what that is and how the fit is. Or if you're looking for the smaller applicants that tend to need more help, particularly in managed internal broadband services or managed services, that may be a better fit for you. The right product fit from their purchase history and from your capabilities, and then willing to work with you. This is a people business. Unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, people buy from people, particularly in K-12, where they tend to be more people-centric than less machine-centric, if you will. And then you have to win the Form 470 or RFP process, successfully navigate the 471 application. We talked about that, losing a deal in the midstream or waking up suddenly and finding the deal has gone sideways on you, didn't understand why. And that's kind of the care and feeding of the process through what's called the Program Integrity Assurance or PIA process. Obviously implement your solution starting sometime in the mid to late time frame of 2022, and then properly invoice so that you get paid. We're going to hit on most of that as we go through this presentation. So what is the opportunity? There are 55 million kids roughly in the United States as of the 2015 time frame. It's more or less depending upon whose numbers you look at. There is a Category 2 internal connections budget. The thing that you're most focused on with your managed services projects is $167 over a 5-year period. At $167, that means that there's $9 billion available for funding over the next 5 years for Category 2 internal connections. In other words, the stuff that you do and sell. There are 104,000 K-12 schools, 13,000 public school districts in the United States, and a ton of infrastructure. There's roughly 25 or 27 or 2.7 to 3 million classrooms, depending on estimates you're looking at. I think it's closer to 3 million classrooms in the United States. That's just a ton of infrastructure. And there are approximately within the ERate program, 12,000 what are non-public K-12 and library applicants. They've also instituted the capabilities to support school buses with the ERate program with what's called the latest Emergency Connectivity Fund. It's a separate ERate program that was just announced with $7 billion in it. School buses are eligible. We think that they're going to be eligible in the coming year as far as ERate is concerned. How did we get to ERate? Well, in 1996, Congress passed what was called the Telecommunications Act. And in it, they directed the Federal Communications Commission to establish competitively neutral rules to support schools and libraries in gaining access to advanced telecommunication information services. That's 1996 wording. Fast forward to 2020, and we're talking internet. It's funded by what's called the universal service fee on your phone bill. So if you look at your cell phone bill, you'll see that there is a monthly associated universal service fee. It is a monthly thing that collects and equates to about $11 billion annually to support the ERate program, among others. There's universal service supports rural healthcare, high cost and low income, and the ERate program. There's $4 billion for the ERate program for schools and libraries, and we're going into the 24th year of the program. Who can get the money? Schools and libraries. Schools, they must be a not-profit institutional day or parochial or residential school. It includes charter schools. So the Catholic school down the street is eligible as long as they don't have an endowment in excess of $50 million. K-12 Head Starts, or pre-K, Head Start type programs are eligible depending on the state. California, Texas being examples here are eligible for Head Start programs. And then juvenile justice system programs, however you want to couch it, the jail for minors in effect is eligible where there's education taking place. And then public libraries, must be completely separate from any school systems. So your local college library is not eligible, whether state funded or not, but your downtown public library is eligible for this program as well as their branches. There are two categories of service, one having subcategories. So category one includes telecommunications services, wide area network and data communications, and internet access. Category two, or internal connections, is the thing that we're going to focus on today. That's where managed internal broadband services resides, as well as net new hardware, as well as maintenance on that hardware and software. Category one is always funded first, and then category two is funded beginning with the neediest applicants. So there were some rule changes that occurred in 2020 affecting going forward 2021 through 2025 and then beyond. In it, they established a long-term solution for support mechanisms. So the category two budget, the thing that we're most concerned about as far as funding resources and availability, is reset every 5 years. So let's say that they have $200,000 in category two budget. They have about 1,050 students or something like that. They have in effect $200,000. Well, that budget resets again in 2026. So they'll have a reset budget and they'll go back to, as if they hadn't spent any money, and they'll get another $167,000 or $167 per student, or whatever that number is due to inflation and cost of living increases at that point in time. In 2021, budgets will be on a school district or library system basis. They streamline the program. Up to this point, it was on a site-by-site basis. So if you had, let's take Clark County School District in Las Vegas, Nevada, has 400 schools in the system approximately. Before, they could only spend that money for that site based on the number of students. So if they had 100 students, in this example, $167 per student, they had $16,000 to spend. They could only spend that $16,000 at that site, not across the other sites. Now they can mix and match and move it around as needed. And then there was what was called the funding floor of $9,200. They've increased that to $25,000, which greatly helps those really small applicants in gaining some additional funding resources. And the per student allocation is $167 for schools. It's $4.50 per square foot for libraries. That's based on interior space. So what does the category two budget flow look like? So in this example, applicant decided to spend $50,000 of their $167,000 available spending based on 1,000 students. And that's good. They spent the money. Now in 2022, they're deciding to spend $27,000. That would mean in 2023, they have a remaining budget of $90,000 to spend. The budget spend is at a discount level. So the money that's reimbursed in this instance is 15 cents on the dollar. So if they spent all $167,000 over the 5-year period, they would have had to come up with a difference between $167,000 and the $141,950. So roughly about $16,000. Where we talked about the budget floor, in prior years, they would have had at Little Red Schoolhouse Elementary School with 100 students, $16,000 to spend, but because that is below the budget floor, they can elect to take the budget floor as opposed to that $16,000 as their budget. And so a school district that only had a $50,000 budget based on student population now has $100,000 and becomes a much more attractive target to spend or try and do business with. What's eligible to sell and support underneath of Category 2 internal connections is based on this list, and it's a pretty short list actually. So access points, wireless LAN, eligible, we can support it. Antennas, cabling infrastructure, and the related components used for internal broadband connections. SFPs, optics, power supplies, as long as it's not designed for hot standby redundancy, it's eligible. Anything that is utilized, PoE injectors eligible, etc. Caching is eligible. Firewall services, basic firewall services at this point are eligible. We're hoping that they expand the definition of basic firewall to be inclusive of next generation or unified threat management solutions, but at this point it's basic firewall only. Switches, routers, racks, UPSs, wireless controller systems for those that are not cloud managed or cloud-based, and then software supporting the components. When we say software supporting, what we're talking about is operating system software or licensing software to allow this product to operate. It is not maintenance or management software, et cetera, that is not eligible here. That would be under managed internal broadband services. Some caveats or
Jim, before you dig into that, can you, and maybe you're going to get here already, but one of the things I always found interesting was how firewalls and devices like that get broken up by ERate, as far as being, whatever percentage eligible and how you go through that whole process. Does it make sense to, or were you going to get to that, or is that something that maybe we want to just kind of talk through?
So if a product is partially eligible, let's say you have a next generation firewall. Go back up a couple slides here. Yep. So let's take, so the firewall services and components in the middle point. That's separate from basic firewall protection, provided as a standard component of a vendor's internet access service. So ISPs oftentimes will bundle a firewall service into their offering. We're talking about that's something that's separate from that. So let's say, take your pick.
Yeah, we were a Sophos shop, so we'd drop a Sophos XG box in there, and it was, I feel like at some point they were like 49% eligible or something crazy like that.
So it's probably over 65 or 70% eligible for that device to be eligible overall. Or the project is, let's say you have a $100,000 project and the firewall is part of it. The firewall itself is $10,000 and it's partially eligible at 60%. That means that the applicant, the school or library, would pay $4,000 plus the discount percentage that they owe. So if, let's say it's a $6,000 or a $10,000 firewall, they're paying $4,000 out of pocket. And then on top of that, they get a 50% discount. So they would have to pay $7,000 for that $10,000 firewall, and USAC or the ERate program would support the other $3,000. That's called cost allocation. Most of the stuff that we're talking about here, other than firewalls, is 100% eligible. So usually it's not an issue, but when we get into something like firewalls, it gets a little convoluted and problematic. So happy to talk about it, but that's a different deep dive for a different day, frankly.
all I can say is it was one of the most valuable things that you helped me through. So I think it's important to MSPs to know you don't have to take this on alone. This is what help is. This is where the help comes in.
Exactly. So then we have the second leg of the internal connections category 2 stool is basic maintenance. So we want to make sure that you understand that you the nirvana, the best of all possible worlds is to have an applicant that actually applies for basic maintenance as well as internal connections, as well as managed internal broadband services, because you can buy the hardware under internal connections. You can support it from a break fix standpoint, bug fixes, etc., with basic maintenance of internal connections. Or if there's actually a hardware failure, you can dispatch a technician and get reimbursed for it on a time and materials basis. But if they don't have basic maintenance, then they can't really do any break fix or technical support under managed internal broadband services or internal connections. It has to be basic maintenance of internal connections. I'm going to show you a little bit more here in the next couple of slides. So repair and upkeep of eligible hardware, wire and cable maintenance, configuration changes. So we have an existing infrastructure, we're changing and making config changes. That's eligible under basic maintenance. Basic technical support, online telephone-based technical support from the manufacturer is eligible, and upgrades and patches, including bug fixes and security patches, are eligible under, again, basic maintenance. Some eligibility limitations. This boils down to you're not allowed to do a blanket warranty. In other words, if it breaks, we'll fix it for 10% of the total cost of the system. That's not eligible under ERate. It's a time and materials. So let's say I have 100 switches and 500 access points and a firewall, et cetera. We estimate what the break fix is going to be for that annual life cycle of 1 year. And at that point in time, we estimate that, we submit the estimate. So let's say we say, hey, we're going to lose 3 switches and 10 firewall or 10 access points, and maybe the firewall will need a little care and feeding at some point in time. Then we would, plus the maintenance support, we would estimate those hours and say we're going to estimate that as 50 hours, as well as some, $5,000 worth of hardware. So our estimate is, that's our estimate. As the failure occurs, then we would dispatch the technician, invoice it on a time and materials basis, and then get reimbursed or get the applicant to get reimbursed for those expenditures. So a little different, it's a little convoluted, but just understand that it is basic maintenance of internal connections. It is not management, operation, and monitoring of the system, which is the true MSP model, which says if we don't dispatch a technician until we troubleshoot it, but at the point in time where we dispatch, it becomes a basic maintenance of internal connections. Up until that point, it's managed internal broadband services or managed Wi-Fi in the case of ERate, and they will pay for the operation, management, and monitoring of eligible services off of that list we talked about just a minute ago. In, again, the management operation, including installation, activation, and initial configuration of the eligible components. And interestingly enough, it even allows you to lease or rent the gear to the applicant. So let's say that 100 switches and 500 access points, they want to actually lease it. As long as the payment is made to you as the MSP that's registered with the ERate program, they can lease it and make monthly payments on it. And you can lease it to them and manage it and support it. So you also can request a one-time upfront installation or initiation or setup fee. So what would happen would be that you would make an application out and you would say, I want an upfront initiation fee of $100,000 based on $1 million transaction. The setup fees and some other expenditures, I need $100,000. And then I'm going to do for the next 3 years, I'm going to do an amortized schedule of whatever that is, $3,000 a year to get to the 3 years. And then they reapply for this annually. Okay, so they have to actually apply for this annually. You must hold the lease, rent, and payments must be made to you. That's very important. They can't be made to a third party. Don't drop boxes, things like that. It's to you. Usually these agreements are for 3 years plus 2 voluntary annual extensions. That's 5 years. That's typically the longest that a public sector entity will go as far as a contract. Recommend that you do a basic termination clause. Your old phone system or cell phone contracts, where if you terminate the contract early, you owe the balance on the phone or device or service. Again, it's for the operation management and monitoring, means up to the point where you dispatch a tech for actual repairs. And then in your agreement, you must list the eligible components being managed. As an example, you have 20 of model, manufacturer's X model, whatever, 48 port switch, 2 firewalls, and 150 access points, whatever they might be. You have to actually list that you're supporting those eligible services. This is a matrix to discuss, are you bidding the right thing? So you have basic maintenance of internal connections. The only things you can do are maintenance, the actual, going and blowing out the fans kind of maintenance kinds of things, as well as break fix on a time and materials basis. And again, under break fix. And then reconfigurations, and you estimate those out. The manufacturer support is a one-time annual kind of situation. It's basically a sub-license, if you will, for bug fixes, software updates and patches, telephone and online support. That is eligible under the manufacturer's support under basic maintenance of internal connections. Under internal connections, that manufacturer support is eligible if it's bundled for the price of the hardware software. In other words, the way it's stated is not as a separately identifiable component or line item. So in your bill of materials, where you have manufacturer's warranty, and let's say you have a switch, it's a $1,000 switch, and you have included for 3 years the manufacturer's warranty and software licensing. That is eligible. If there's a second line item, switch, $900, next line item, manufacturer's warranty and support for 3 years, $100, that is not eligible under ERate and will get kicked back every time. And again, the configuration new, operation monitoring and management of the systems is eligible under managed internal broadband services. So how do we arrive at this thing called the ERate discount? It's based on the national school lunch participation of the student population. In other words, the definition of poverty is the national school lunch program at 125% of the poverty level. Anything below that, you qualify for a free or reduced lunch in the school system. Libraries get their discount from the school district in which their headquarters branch resides. And there is also a 5% bump for rural up to a certain level as far as the discount matrix goes. So lower income rural districts get an additional discount for the ERate program. So this is the discount matrix or structure. If you have, let's say Beverly Hills 90210, 0 kids qualify for ERate in that district. In this case, they would get a 20% discount no matter what. And it goes all the way up to if 75 kids in 100 qualify for free or reduced lunch, they get a 90% discount for category 1. And under category 2, they get an 85% discount. In other words, this program will pay for 85 cents on the dollar. What does process flow look like for ERate? So with any public sector entity, they have to do certain basic things. They determine if they have a need and they have a budget. They at that point in time file what's called the Form 470. The Form 470 establishes the services a district is seeking. It must include summary of services, even if it's going out to bid or RFP included, and they must wait 28 days from the day that they issue the Form 470 until they can file a contract. During that period, they must conduct a fair, open, and competitive process, and they must follow state and local procurement laws. And in their decision, as they get down to their decisions at the 28th day, on the 29th day, when it becomes contract allowable or allowable contract date, the price must be the most heavily weighted factor that they utilize in their evaluation process. Once they've done all of that and they sign a contract, they can file what's called a Form 471. This is an application for E-rate discounts. And basically it says, I've selected Alex Farling's company 123 to the tune of $100,000 a year. My demographics look like this, therefore I qualify for a discount of 85%. Please fund me for the following contractual items that I've contracted. So they file that Form 471. That deadline is usually in the mid to late March for any given funding year. So we anticipate that, last year COVID was a little bit impactful, shall we say, on our process. So this year we're expecting a more rational process, and we expect that the deadline for filing the Form 471 will occur sometime in mid-March. Once you file that Form 471, you're required to look at it and watch what happens to it, but at some point down the road, it will get what's called a funding commitment decision letter from an organization called the Program Integrity Assurance Process. They're the review process. That's what it looks like, kind of the high level version. This is what does the applicant have to do to make all of this work. So they start out at the top July through February. They plan for services and budgets. The eligible services list is released. The application window is announced. That's typically in December. And then the applicants typically wait till the very last minute to file their Form 470. You wait 28 days. On the 29th day, you ensure that you've submitted your bid. They've received the bids. And then they do several things. They revise their student data to make sure that they get the highest level of discount they can. They have conducted and will continue to conduct a fair, open, and competitive bidding process. The bids are reviewed at that point. Price is the biggest factor. They select you as the service provider, and they execute a contract. At that point, and not before then, they can file their Form 471. So back to the top, through April through August, once the 471 is filed, it goes through a review process. We highly recommend that the very first line, when you have one of these things is filed, you receive a notification via email from USAC saying, hey, so-and-so's filed a Form 471 with your service provider identification number on it. Be aware, here it is. At that point, it's your best scenario for fixing any issues or problems that you determine are with that application. It goes into what's called PIA review, Program Integrity Assurance. I have another nickname for it. And then at the point in time where the application is completed review and is formally accepted, they will issue what's called a Funding Commitment Decision Letter, or FCDL. They would typically, if it's a school district, issue a PO at that point, and then file what's called a Form 486 that says, hey, we're receiving services from MSP XYZ, and please allow them to invoice us. The service or installation has started at that point, and you have two ways to invoice. One is to invoice the applicant for the entire amount and they pay you. The other is intriguing because, frankly, it's probably a faster pay, is what's called service provider invoicing, or SPI invoicing. This is where the applicant pays, you invoice the applicant for their 15%, let's say, of the $100,000, you invoice them for $15,000 and say, we'll get the rest from USAC, and you turn around and submit an invoice through their invoicing system. Strangely enough, they're one of the fastest pays known to mankind. I typically see my applicants or my service provider partners getting invoiced and payment within 7 to 10 business days, 99% of the time. There's that rare occasion when there's something wrong, but typically they're getting paid within 10 business days religiously. It's really fast. So during the bidding process, they must conduct a fair, open, and competitive process, as we stated before, following state and local procurement laws. You're not allowed to give them an RFP. You're not, that says, hey, that's magic, that will win every time with me. You're not allowed to provide a bill of materials to the applicant that is subsequently used as an RFP, even when prefaced by the words equivalent or equal or compatible. Again, it's helping them with the RFP. If a specific product or service is named in an RFP or Form 470 as an acquisition, then the words equivalent or equal or compatible must be included, and the applicant's required to review or evaluate the products submitted as equivalent. The applicant has to create a Form 470 that has enough specificity in it that they can actually create a bid for it. If there's not enough information, then you have to ask a question. They're either going to have to answer your question, or they're going to have to issue a Form 470, reissue a Form 470 with an RFP in it. They're required to answer technical questions. If you ask them a technical question, they have to answer it, not as if or when, but have to answer it in a timely fashion. Now, a technical question is a technical question. It doesn't start out by saying, hi, this is so-and-so with such and such a company. We are the largest managed service provider in the upstate New York area. And oh, by the way, we have more clients in the K-12 space and by the way, how many access points do you need? That is not a technical question. That is a sales presentation with a technical question at the end. They do not have to answer the first. They do have to answer, how many access points do you require? Pure and simple. Must answer, again, district must document the selection process, have some sort of evaluation matrix, big score sheet. We'll show you an example. And price must be that most heavily weighted factor, considering only eligible services for the program. So what you're not allowed to do, you're not allowed to prepare or draft an RFP and give it to them that is the magic silver bullet that's going to win every time. You're supposed to remain what's called competitively neutral at all times. This means that you can't exert undue influence or interfere with an applicant's affirmative duty to conduct a fair, open, and competitive bidding process. You're not allowed to provide funding for discounts or undiscounted portion of the applicant's share. You may not assist in the 470 application process, and you can't give them free stuff. Like you can't say, hey, listen, if you buy from us for that network, we'll provide all new voice over IP phones. That's a no-no. No free services, no free lunch. Here's what a vendor score matrix example looks like. This is right off of USAC's website. Note that it has the price of eligible products and services at 30% of the price, and everything else is less weighted. Notice that also this applicant has decided to include ineligible services and products for 25, meaning that price is 55% of the decision and will tend to drive the decision. Also note that there are subjective and objective components to this thing. So prior experience with the vendor, I can give 0 points or 20 points. And if let's say that I've had little to no interaction, I can elect to give 20, or I could give 5 if I've had some phone conversations. It's, again, very subjective, not objective. You're not allowed to leave gear on site forever as a demo or proof of concept. During the application window for that 28-day period where their application is live, they're limited to 15 days of demo, eval, proof of concept kinds of situations. Make sure you track the product delivery and get a return material authorization with a return receipt on this gear for sure, because if you don't, then you're in violation of the gift rule and you're in violation of federal law. And then nothing of value in excess of $20 in any single transaction. Obviously, promotional items, pens, cups, t-shirts, that kind of thing doesn't count. Minimal types of food and beverage, like iced tea or coffee at the back of the room with some donuts or bagels or whatever, that's okay. Just don't go over the $20 limit and start going out to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse and taking them out to dinner. That will get you in hot water really fast. It's $20 in any single transaction from your company to that individual. So if you and the sales engineer go out to lunch with the IT director the first time and you pick up the tab, the bill is $60, you put a $12 tip down, you just violated federal law. Let's say that the meal is $50, you put a $10 tip down, you're at that $20 limit, you're okay. Next time you three go out to lunch again, this time the sales engineer picks up the tab and it's $50 and you put a $10 tip down, now you're up to $40 of your allowable $50. So again, it's from your company to that individual, not individual to individual. With that, we're about to wrap up here. If you're interested in participating in this program, you have to do certain things. One is register online. The very first thing you do is get an FCC registration number. I think they'll share this document out at the end of the program. You need an FCC commission registration. It's called a CORS ID number. Once you have that, and if you have your Dun & Bradstreet number or DUNS number, then all you need is the principal contact, as well as banking information, routing and banking account number. And at that point, you can register for the ERate program to do business. I can't encourage you enough. If you decide that you want to participate, take a half an hour, spend 15 minutes with me going through and getting the form registered. It's very convoluted. And if you check one box in this thing incorrectly, you become a common carrier requiring registration with the FCC for the 499 ID, which means that you have to file quarterly bank statements with them or revenue statements with them regarding your carrier services. It is painful and it's very difficult to reverse. So please, if you're going to do this, make sure you're not checking the wrong box. We offer as a free service to go ahead and help you get this thing. And all we ask in return is you just spend a few minutes with us afterwards. I promise it's no more than 20 minutes on a demo of our software as a service platform, ERate ProfitWorks, how it can help you in the process. That's me. Love it if you contact me. Feel free to do so. Kerr at ERate Profit, WERKS.net. That's my phone number. I'm happy to help you all in the process. And thanks for your time.
Jim, thank you very much for your information. For everybody, what we're going to do right now is I want to announce the 2 DoorDash winners. And then I'm going to turn it over to Jason Price, who is with Datto. I want to thank Datto for being a sponsor of today's event. And then what we'll do is we will, from there, turn it over to questions. And Alex and Jim will be available for those. And so first and foremost, our 2 DoorDash winners are receiving a $25 DoorDash gift card. First winner is James Fernandez, and the second winner is Tracy Perry. So James Fernandez and Tracy Perry, congratulations to the 2 of you. You'll be receiving an email with your DoorDash gift card. And then from there, what I want to do is I'm going to introduce Jason Price. Jason, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great. I appreciate you being here. And if you want to give a little introduction about yourself, love to hear about who Jason is today.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So Jason Price here. I'm a channel development manager for the business development team at Datto. My role is to help MSP partners learn about the different threats that are out there and also educate them on different tools that we have to help them in assisting their end users and their customers. So whether you're a small, medium, whether you're an MSP who deals with small, medium, or enterprise customers and opportunities, we have solutions that are able to help assist you with them.
Excellent. And in taking a look at a lot of the eligible products, Datto is just a natural fit, a good partner to be able to work together with and sell a lot of the gear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have everything from different networking solutions, so those firewalls of that nature, to business continuity, making sure that you are able to protect your client's data. And that's no matter where it lives, whether it's on-premise or hosted in the cloud or through O365 or G Suite or whatever the case may be, a wide range of solutions to help assist.
Excellent. I greatly appreciate Datto's partnership for bringing this information out to the MSP community. And is there anything else you'd like to share before we move on to our Q&A session?
No. Just, one thing that we always want to make sure that it resonates loud is that we are channel only. We make sure that we are fully invested into the channel and to our partners and making sure that we can help to maximize, their opportunities. And once again, at the end of the day, protect your clients.
Excellent. Jason, thank you. I appreciate it. And with that being said, Alex, I want to bring it over to you because you've had a lot of experience working with the ERate program, as well as working together with Jim with ERate ProfitWorks. Oop, you're on mute.
Got to outsmart the mute button first. So we actually have a really valid point that Alan Miller brings up, and that is that you may be able to get copies of previous technology bids from websites for these different organizations. But Jim, do you want to talk a little bit about how to know what these folks have been spending, what they're going to be spending, what they have available for spend? While some of that may be available as public record, you also have some pretty amazing tools to show us what's available for public record. So shameless plug, take it away.
Thanks for the opportunity for that shameless plug.
Softball, yeah.
My foil, Alex, appreciate it. So the reality is that if you wanted to look up every RFP that was issued in last year for managed internal broadband services, we have software as a service tool, and you could simply click on 471 managed internal broadband services and one with an RFP, and it would show you every single one, and you just click through and actually click the links that were embedded in our software. So we have some pretty cool software tools, as Alex alluded to do, help you not only find net new opportunities, and we have what's called our hunting list, which shows every single transaction in category 2 internal connections made, what products they bought, how long ago they bought them, and how much they spent on them, and who they spent it with. So if you have, you want to look at a competitor, you can go looking for a competitor and see what their pricing looks like. You can do a variety of things like that and pick up historical information or net new opportunities. As the opportunities come, we actually post them up in our system as well as send them to you via an email lead system.
Yeah, nothing like waking up in the morning to an email from Jim's automaton that says, hey, XYZ school system is looking for these solutions, and they happen to be in your region right up the street from you, whatever, and you probably should go take a look at it. So that was always pretty cool when we were working with you guys.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
There was one question about the slide deck, and so what we'll be doing is getting the slide deck out, as well as the replay of today's event. So everybody that is registered, you'll receive an email. If it's not later tonight, you'll get it tomorrow morning. So just wanted to answer that one question there.
And so, one of the other things I'd just like to point out to all the MSPs listening on the call, it's one thing to go sell these schools and libraries, maintenance on some switches and some firewalls and some access points. But, the real value here for MSPs is in your relationship with them once you get in the door. This is that thing that allows you to break through the barrier. MSPs are always complaining. I mean, one of the biggest complaints and one of the biggest new industries is getting leads for MSPs, right? They never know where to start. This is a fantastic place to start. It's not an overnight solution. It requires putting some work in and really building a process. But these are very, very profitable engagements that Jim and his team bring to us. So there's a little bit of work to them. They can be long sales processes and expensive sales processes, but man, amazing results that we got out of our MSP. And on average, when we did managed services for K-12, they were some of our most profitable, not some of, all of our most profitable deals. At one point, our top 5 deals were our 5 K-12 customers on margin.
Excellent.
Jim Kerr's info again. Let's throw that back. You want to throw that in the chat, Dan?
Yeah, I will do that.
And while you're doing that, I do want to just throw out there that we very softball rolled out at Lifecycle Insights last night a tool for managing Chromebook inventories for our partners. So if you're a Lifecycle Insights partner and you work with K-12s, they often need a lot of help lifecycling in and out their Chromebooks and figuring out when they go end of life and when those need to be addressed and when those need to be dealt with. So we now have what I believe is the first of its kind in a tool that can manage those. So if you have questions about that, you guys all know where to find me.
So I do have a question that we have a couple of questions here, but the first thing is, so what we're looking at here is for the 2022 school year. And so there's quite a bit of time between now and then, right? But I also want to say that there's probably not a lot of time between now and then. So it's a little deceiving that we're looking at next year, but this is one of those things that you have to first and foremost have that relationship with the schools. And so with that being said, what are some of the recommendations that you have for MSPs today to start preparing?
So I would say that the very first and most important thing is to start marketing now to those applicants that are going to file in December, January, February timeframe. You want to get ahead of the curve. You don't want to wait until December to say, oh, let's go talk to some of these folks. And they all know what's going on. So now is the time. Again, it's a people business. It's not like throw up a proposal and expect to win kind of thing without any interaction. You need to go out and actually beat the streets and deal with these folks on a face-to-face basis. Or, obviously, if it's COVID issue, you need to get in front of them. That's for sure, and do it now.
And with that being said, I mean, I'm a firm believer, and I love hearing you say, people buy from people. I mean, because I think unfortunately we live in this technology world, and we expect so much just to happen in a digital format, right? Like, oh, I can put a quick bid in, I can throw this in, and I'm going to win. But it's not the case. So when it comes time for bids, typically, how many other organizations are bidding for a particular school alongside yourself?
2 or 3.
Oh, go ahead, Jim.
No, go ahead, Alex.
Well, I'm going to tell you multiple times, and this was for new and like renewal bids. I can't tell you how many times I heard that I was the only bidder.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not what I expected.
It was insane to me. And granted, my MSP was in little rinky-dink middle of nowhere, Delaware, but then that may not hold true for downtown Philadelphia. But it was surprising to me how few folks there were.
That's incredible. I mean, because again, so what we're talking about then is developing those relationships, and now is the time just to get out there, meet with those in the schools that are decision makers and fall into this particular area. And whether you're leveraging chamber relationships, whether you're maybe work with board members within the school district, just developing that relationship. So when it's time, you are ready and you're prepared. Like Jim said, you don't want to wait till December and saying, hello, let's develop a relationship right now. And then, by the way, tomorrow I'm going to start talking to you about ERate. It's an ongoing process. Yeah, like Carrie threw in the comments, it's not an easy, it's not easy money, but it's one of those things that there is, if any opportunity that we have, if we're trying to sell something, money is always the number one, objection that we're running into, right? And, money and budgeting and so on, what could be better than to be in a position where there's funding available? That's incredible. But again, it doesn't mean it's automatic for you. Very, very interesting though, that you would run into scenarios where you're the only one bidding. That's very encouraging as well. Other questions that are out there? Does anybody else have any additional questions before we move on?
And while we wait for those, I'll say, it's obvious sometimes from reviewing the RFP when they know, the RFP was written by somebody who is, and this is with all RFPs, right? You can tell the ones that are written specifically for an incumbent vendor and the ones that aren't. We didn't bid on every one that came up in the state of Delaware. We bid on the ones that made sense and the ones that we thought that we had a chance at. I didn't bid on the largest school district in the state because I knew I couldn't support them if I got it. We were a small sized MSP, an average sized MSP. So we really laser focused on the small independent schools, and we did really well with them.
Excellent. So when it comes down to pricing, what are just real brief in this area is, If you're concerned that there might be other vendors that are bidding as well, how does that come into play? That there's going to be a variety of bids coming in obviously, multiple price points.
We used a standard price point, mostly because I was pretty nervous about some of the regulation and requirement that goes into E-rate, and Jim can explain better to you the standard, but there's some language there about every school has to get, your competitive price or whatever, and it has to be fairly close and similar across the board. So, and Jim, I'll let you speak to that because I'm not going to do it justice, but we used flat pricing and charged every school the same. It was just easy.
There's a rule that says what's called lowest corresponding price rule. And that says is that if I offer a price for a similarly situated applicant, I must honor that price to all other similarly situated applicants. Similarly situated can be size or locale, but it means that if you offer, let's say $1 per year per device kind of situation to one, it better be $1 per year per device to another. If, let's say, one has 500 and the other has 750, those would be considered to be similarly situated. And so, be careful. Just there is a rule associated with that.
We have a question from Joshua. The question is, how does the percentage for funding covered on a piece of hardware get developed, such as a firewall, switch, or access point?
I'm not sure I understand the question, so ask again.
So how does the percentage of funding covered on a piece of hardware get set? So I think if I'm reading the question properly, is that if there's a switch and it's going to have a 65% discount, which is that portion's covered by the E-rate program or funded by E-rate, how is that determined that that particular item is 65% versus 55 or 70?
So with switches are 100% eligible. So there is no what's called qualification associated with a switch. If a switch is 100% eligible and the discount percentage is, let's say, 85% and it's a $10,000 switch, that means that USAC is going to pay $8,500 and the applicant has to pay $1,500 for that device.
And that discount percentage is based solely on the level of poverty in that school district. It has nothing to do with a piece of hardware. That's just simply, this is the discount percentage that's allowed by USAC for this particular product or for this particular district.
So
okay.
Again, where that comes in is where you have something, let's say that you're charging let's say you have a maintenance contract and you bundled a 5-year support SKU from, let's say Ruckus, okay, has a 5-year support SKU. And it's not a license, it's a support SKU for basic support that includes telephone, online support, break fixes or bug fixes, software patches, and updates. So let's say that SKU is for 5 years is $1,000. What they could do is apply for $200 a year over the next 5 years for that SKU. That breaks it down to 20% per year. But those, firewalls where it's not 100% eligible or multi-year type SKUs broken out over a 5-year or 3-year period, those are the only two instances where you're going to start to break out percentages.
Excellent.
And Josh, to answer that question a little bit just differently, the hardware vendor should know exactly what the discount rate is on a given piece of hardware, because they've had to put out to a consultant to somebody's got to figure that out for them. But that math is already done. It's pretty much in stone. So your vendor should know. Ruckus, for example, or Sophos will know that information based on the model and the licensing that goes into it.
Yes.
Excellent. I believe we've answered all of our questions. What I want to do here is just let everybody know again that we will be sending out an email that will include the replay of today's event, so you can share it with others on your team. And then it will also include today's slide deck, as well as Jim's contact information. We'll make sure that we have that in there as well. Jim is an excellent resource for you to be able to learn how to get set up for the program, as well as work through the program as you see fit within your local community. Alex, I want to thank you for your time as well, helping us. Alex is with Lifecycle Insights. If you haven't, if you're not familiar with Lifecycle Insights, please check them out. And then also I'd like to thank Datto, our sponsor as well. And Jim, thank you for all of your time. Everybody have an awesome day, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.